Hey folks, Mel the Train Tutor back in the studio and back in the Back to Basics playlist with a bit of a basics technique video for you. And in this video what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be going over how we hide the nasty join lines when we use layers of insulating foam, whether it's XP or HD foam. Yeah, and so that's the challenge. Now, there's a few techniques that you can use and a few things that you've got to watch out for. Yeah, so we're actually starting this at the very start of the construction phase. Yeah, but most of the techniques actually happen just before the painting phase. But when it comes to construction, I've got a couple of offcuts here, okay, and I'm going to glue them together and I'm going to turn them into something rocky for another video. Okay, but it gives me a good opportunity to show this. Now, I did show this in the recent Headlands video, but there's a good chance that the technique will get lost in there. And so I wanted a shorter video, direct, focusing on the techniques, yeah, specifically for the Back to Basics playlist. So, we have our blocks ready to be carved. Okay, but first what I want to do is I want to glue them together. Now, my normal glue of choice in this situation is PVA. I also, when I'm gluing foam, I use a little bit of hot glue just to stick them immediately so I can move on. Now, when you're doing your PVA, when you're gluing sheets together, it is always better to do spots rather than large strokes or lines. PVA is air drying. If you do a lot of PVA, the air can't get into it to dry it, and it'll only actually dry all the way around the outside of the layer. The inside will stay wet. Okay, if you do spots, they will dry completely. Now, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to guesstimate where my rocks will be. Yeah, how I'm going to carve it. The reason being is I do not want PVA to come out on the edges. Okay, the reason being is that, bit of hot glue on there quickly. The reason being is that when you when you build these pieces, when the PVA, if you press down and the PVA comes out from between the joins, it'll harden there. Now the PVA is harder than the foam, so any sort of sanding or any sort of, anything abrasive, yeah, which we will be doing, or any cutting, will always cut deeper into the foam than it will into the PVA. Now since the PVA runs along your ridge line, it's basically going to create a little ridge that sticks out. And trust me, yeah, if you get PVA sticking out, yeah, when you get to the painting stage, you will have a hard ridge line that will show up beautifully with dry brushing. Yeah, so you need to get rid of that hard ridge line. If by any chance as you do squeeze down you have PVA that comes out, my recommendation is wait until it completely dries, get a sharp blade and very carefully cut into the join line, top and bottom at an angle, yeah, so that you essentially take a little V out. That V will be easier to fill with filler and hide than trying to get that PVA line sanded or cut down to meet the rest of the foam. So, first tip for you, keep your PVA well in. On this piece, I've given it a good squeeze and none has come out of any of the join lines. That being said, I am going to carve into this, so I may come across some once it's dried. Yeah, that's one of the other reasons I tend to do my carving, yeah, while the PVA is still wet and it's just being held together by the hot glue. Yeah, the reason being is if I do cut through somewhere where PVA is there and it leaks through, I could smear it up and down rather than it bleeding out and making a blob line, if you know what I mean. So, cheeky tip number 2 there for you. Right, my next job is I need to carve this up into rocks. Now, there is nothing special about this. I'm just going to forget the join lines there as I'm doing this. I'll deal with the join line afterwards. Okay, so I'll get cracked on. So I finished basing my rocky mountain and I was just about to apply the filler, and then I realised I better show you the join line, hadn't I, before I do. So if I bring it round to the close cam, yeah, you should be able to see the join line running along there. Okay, now there was only one point where it came out as sort of PVA-ish, which was down here, and I just gave that a rub over with my finger. Another quick tip for you is, if you do have a part where just one bit is slightly sticking out more than any, you know, the bottom or the top is sticking out more than another, what you can do is just come along, if it's HD foam, and just press it in. Yeah, that will certainly help it. It doesn't get rid of the join line completely, and I wouldn't rely on it as a method to deal with join lines, but it certainly helps if you've got the odd little bit that's sticking out a little. At the same time, coming along with a nice sharp blade afterwards and just checking over your join lines. It's good practice, you know, clean up where a cut has gone over, you know, and it hasn't cut the other side. And what I mean by this is, quite often you can come in and you can sort of snap bits off, and it'll snap off the top bit but maybe not snap off the bottom bit completely, or snap in a different position because the two pieces aren't joined, and then you end up with a little ledge that needs cleaning up. It's good practice. Now anyway, as I was saying, I'm just about to just give this a coat of filler. Now the filler doesn't really do anything for the join line at the minute, but one thing I will be doing is, as I do it, I will be rubbing the filler just over the join line, so it does fill in any of those gaps. I'd be doing that anyway, you know, I rub it over everywhere, but I am checking that join line. Right, with that in mind, I'm going to get this fillered up, and once that's fillered up, we should be able to see that join line a little bit better, and I'll be able to take you through how to specifically disguise it. Right, cracking on time. And so our filler coat has dried, and if I bring it round, yeah, there you are. It's looking a lot lighter, but you can still see my join line. In fact, the filler coat has actually accentuated the join line. Let me explain. Yeah, where you've got this bit, what's happened is, as the fillers come down, there's this weird thing with like fluid dynamics, where if it gets to a corner or something like that, gravity sort of makes it hang. And what this has done is it's sort of left a little lip all the way across our join line as it's tried to drain underneath. Now if I paint this up now, that little lip is a bit like the PVA ridge. It's going to stick out like a sore thumb. Sore thumb? It's going to stick out. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is, this is a simple technique. First one, I just need to remove that little lip. And all I'm doing it with is my finger. Yeah, I could come along with a little bit of sandpaper. Yeah, but there's always a risk of going in a bit too heavy with that. So, dragging my finger across it, yeah, and that, as you can see, is helping to blend that line away. Yeah, the reason it's helping to blend that line away on the camera is because as I take that lip out, yeah, there's no longer anything causing the shadow in the line, so the line's immediately improving. Okay, and it's the same once you apply paint on it. If you don't take away the lip, you have a little shadow underneath your highlighted dry brushed line. So, finger around here, I'll just finish off this. And, as you can see, yeah, that's drastically improved our join line. You can still see it, there's no doubt about that. If I bring it round to the close cam, yeah, you can still see it there, but it's a lot less pronounced. Now we need to do the final technique to sort of deal with our join line, and it's essentially a bit of camouflage. And for this, normally when I'm doing a terrain and working with filler, Yeah, I normally say wetter is better, but in this case, you want to go in dry. Now, not completely dry filler, because, you know, you're going to break your tool, but don't add any water in. Okay, now I've got a hog's hair brush here. Yeah, I've got some filler on it, and all I'm going to do is, along this join line, I'm going to come along and I'm going to stipple. The stippling will force the filler into any remaining recesses. Yeah, if you've got a particularly difficult area like this one, what you can do is you can go down first, then up, that will fill the area, and then quick stipple. Yeah, so down, then up, and quick stipple. Yeah, and that will completely destroy that join line. Okay, so I am literally just going to do this. It is a little bit handy if you've got any sort of large blank areas to give those a bit of a stipple to keep it in theme as well. Yeah, what you don't want to do is just stipple all the way along your join line, because in which case what you'll do then is you'll create this situation where you can't see the join line, but you'll have a stipple line that when you dry brush becomes really apparent. So remember to spread your stippling out a little as well. Yeah, so going along, up, down, stipple. Right, I'm going to get this stippled up and I will come back when it's done. And now our stippling is done, our join lines are hidden. It's as simple as that. And if I bring it round to the close cam, there you go. No more join line, not at all. You might be able to see a slight bit where it was, but what you're actually looking at is you're looking at the white line of the actual stippling. It's not that so much apparent on this piece, but on some pieces it does come across. That's not the join line, that's just wet filler. You know, that will change and match the perfect join line, but there is no join lines on there. Now remember, this is a progressive technique, and what I mean by that is, if one stipple isn't good enough to hide your join line, keep working along the piece, and by the time that you've got to the end of it, the piece that hasn't hidden will have dried, because it's only a little bit of a stippling, so it'll dry really quick. You can go back and add a little bit more in. Yeah, you can keep adding layers onto this to hide it. So when you've got particularly difficult bits, you can go back and revisit them, add more on, and it just hides them away up perfectly. So guys, that is my top tips for getting rid of joins between sheets of insulation when you're making hills and all that sort of stuff. Hiding join lines essentially. As always, I hope you found it useful. If you've got any questions for me on this technique, etc., get them down below. I always answer my questions. And as always guys, like it, share it, and if you really do appreciate these videos, I could do with your help with making them keep happening. Yeah, links down below to things like Patreon and PayPal, and they'll also appear on screen. All I ask is $1 a month. It's not a pork pie, it's not a packet of crisps anymore. Yeah, but all of you guys together chipping in $1 keeps the lights on, the cameras running, and me sharing everything I know to help you with your hobby. And if you're not into, you know, $1 a month, the regular thing, there's a link down below for PayPal and the wish list if you like to do a one-off. It all helps guys. And in the meantime, no more join lines guys. I'll see you in the next video where you'll be seeing this coming up soon. All the best, yeah? Ta-da!